choose multiple mentors. Today we have all kinds of different words. We have fathers, mothers, we have mentors, we have coaches, we have supervisors, we have heroes, we have authors, consultants, teachers. What we're trying to illustrate there is we should probably expand our network. Maybe we need writing mentors, communication mentors, speech mentors. Maybe we need management mentors, leadership mentors, relationship mentors. I know that that's a big part of what I do is I help teams work together better. I help work in conflict, helping people understand each other, how to approach things differently. Choose multiple mentors. Have people in your life. It's important to remember that you don't have to know all these people. Do what needs to be done, or ask the question, at least what needs to be done. Live Christianly, have high ethics, choose multiple mentors. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Today Counts show. This is your host, Jim Piper, and today I'm going to introduce the topic this way. It actually has a title, Becoming the Leaders We Need to Be, but I want to give some background. Don't hold me to the date, but it was a long time ago. I was in a cohort, a doctorate program cohort, which I did not finish, by the way, so I'll just throw that out there and confess that. I got quite a ways through the doctorate program, and then we got to the research, and I looked at my age at the time. I looked at what I was doing, and I really couldn't think of something that I wanted to research at that level. And so I asked myself the question, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But anyway, Dr. Leith Anderson was what they called the professor of record. And there was a small group of us. I don't even remember the number. So don't hold me to the date. Don't hold me to the number. But I'm thinking there might have been 8 of us, 10 of us, maybe a dozen at the most. It was a fantastic program. Really enjoyed it for the time that I was in it. But to kick things off, Dr. Anderson, Pastor Anderson, he started the program by presenting a very simple deck, a slide presentation. Some of you would call it a PowerPoint presentation. And it was very casual. It was very relational, but it was fundamentally sound. It resonated with me so much that at the break, and I developed a relationship with him that I very much enjoyed. I remember, getting in his little Toyota convertible up there. It was obviously not in the winter, but the top was down, and we went to go get a burger together, and we talked about life and leadership and ministry, and I will treasure that. He is retired now. I'm not sure what he's up to, but very much appreciate it. The man. But anyway, during break, I went up to him and I said, hey, I would just like to steal this content. So with absolute graciousness, he said, it's yours. He said, brand it, label it, whatever. And it frankly has become for me, if I'm asked to speak about leadership, which I often am, and I enjoy it thoroughly, and particularly if I have a short notice, or if it's introductory of nature, I present this, and I've presented it many, many times. In fact, I know this sounds like a shameless commercial, but I'd be happy to present it in your context if you thought it was helpful. So I'm going to just pull up my notes here, and we're going to get going here. So again, it's entitled Becoming the Leaders We Need to Be. And I know that some of you in the Lead Today community have probably already been exposed to this. But one of the things I want to say right from the get-go is that when you improve your leadership, when you improve as a leader, everybody benefits. And that should be motivation enough for all of us to want to get better. And so in general, that's really the learning objective in this. Now, what I like about this talk today, this presentation, is that, as I said earlier, I think it applies to everybody. And I think it also is in the spirit of Peter Drucker's work, what makes an effective executive. Now, don't shut me off if you're not an executive. An executive doesn't mean shirt and tie and suit coat. It doesn't mean going to the white collar office. It really means, sitting somewhere in an organization where, you need to drive results. You're in management, you're in leadership, and you need to drive results. And so it means from like a macro perspective, from a leadership perspective, from sometimes a management perspective. And I believe that the time that we're going to have together applies to everyone so much that I want to read to you. I'm literally going to read this from a classic book. Peter Drucker is no longer with us, but again, I said the title of it's The Effective Executive. You can still get it on Amazon. If you've never read this book and you are in management or leadership, my goodness, you got to go out and get this book. Much of my coaching, whether it's to ministry leaders or business leaders, comes from a lot of Peter Drucker's work. So anyway, I want to read this to you. It says that an effective executive does not need to be a leader in the sense that the term is now most commonly used. Harry Truman did not have 1 ounce of charisma, for example, yet he was among the most effective chief executives in U.S. history. Similarly, some of the best business and nonprofit CEOs I've worked with over a 65-year consulting career were not stereotypical leaders. They were all over the map in terms of the personalities, attitudes, values, strengths, and weaknesses. They ranged from extroverted to nearly reclusive, from easygoing to controlling, from generous to the opposite of that. And what made them effective is that they all followed the same 8 practices. Well, I'm not going to go through all of those 8 practices, but some of them are in this presentation. But the reason why I read that to you is because I too believe that leadership is not about temperament. I think it's extremely important to understand one's temperament. In fact, I believe that self-awareness is critical to being a good leader. But leadership is simply hard work, and it's servant work. It's servant work and it's hard work. And it's not about me and it's not about you. It's about serving the mission and about getting other people to commit and serve the mission, to choose multiple mentors. Today we have, all kinds of different words. We have fathers, mothers, we have mentors, we have coaches, we have supervisors, we have heroes, we have authors, consultants, teachers. And, I don't think it's the word. I mean, I know that in our curriculum, we actually define all these things, but sometimes I think we get in the weeds trying to use the right words sometimes versus just extract or exegete, what we're trying to get to. The different colors of the paint and what we're trying to illustrate there is, we should probably expand our network. Maybe we need writing mentors, communication mentors, speech mentors. Maybe we need management mentors, leadership mentors, relationship mentors. I know that that's a big part of what I do. Is I help teams work together better. I help work with conflict, helping people understand each other, how to approach things differently. So choose multiple mentors. Have people in your life, and it's important to remember that you don't have to know all these people. A lot of them write. They write blogs. They write articles. They do research. And as I said before, I have never met Peter Drucker, but I have got at least a dozen of his books in my library. And the one that I read out of today and told you about, The Effective Executive, it is by far my favorite. There's one that's very similar to this. That's for nonprofits. I think it has something to do with leading nonprofits, if I remember the title right. And it has very much the same structure and the same approach. All right, so do what needs to be done, or ask the question, at least, what needs to be done. Live Christianly, have high ethics, choose multiple mentors. And then the fourth is learn the leadership context. Learn the leadership context. I think when I was a younger leader, I didn't really understand this principle and what it means. But I remember when I was a young executive at Bank of America, and I think there's about, I don't remember exactly, but I suppose there was a time where I had over 100 bankers in different levels of the organization that came under my organizational chart. And I remember in those days, there was a lot of talk. This was in the early 80s. There was a lot of talk about your leadership style. And I don't hear that much anymore. And when I do, I cringe, because leadership style is, that's fail, right? That's fail. Leaders have to adapt to their context. So, though I'm intuitive in nature, in my temperament, I might have to adapt my behavior to be more concrete in my leadership. If I'm working with somebody who needs clearer direction, and then I'm going to have to modify what I prefer, which is abstract ideas and thoughts and directions and vision, to more fundamental, specific direction, which is what some people prefer, versus a general direction. The picture that I have on this slide is it's a girls' softball team. And the reason why I put it on there, because it was personal for me. I had coached boys baseball, for forever. And I had this one opportunity to coach a girls' softball team. And I was dumbfounded, because no offense to your boys, if you've got boys, but if you've never coached boys, they're and you're trying to have a talk with them, and they're sitting on the grass. Well, they're picking at the grass, they're throwing it at each other. You're darn sure that they're not, listening to you. When you turn your back, two of them are wrestling, another one's throwing a rock. I mean, they're all over the place. And so you kind of get used to that. But with this girls' team, one of the things that shocked me is when I talked, everybody listened. I mean, they were intently listening. They were asking clarifying questions. They were different than the boys. The boys would tease each other. The boys would make fun of each other when somebody didn't, or they'd get mad at each other when one created an error or struck out or whatever it might have been. But not so with these girls. I think it might be part of that nurturing feature there. And you can go ahead and send me hate mail if you want. I don't care. There's definitely a difference organically, at least in my experience, where these girls listened, they encouraged each other, they cheered each other on, and they took great pride in being a team member. Well, boy, learning the leadership context for coaching girls was a lot different than coaching the boys. So, sometimes a startup is different than a turnaround. I mean, it has the same fundamentals, but that's a different thing. Is it a huge organization? Is it a Fortune 500? Well, organizational savvy looks totally different in a Fortune 500 company than it does a family office or a family-owned business or a smaller company. It looks really different.